All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, for anyone who wants the tush push to go away, well, they just got some more fuel to add to their fire during the Philadelphia Eagles 38-20 win yesterday over the New York Giants. Now, early on in the second quarter, that with the Eagles driving for a potential score, Philadelphia lined up in their customary typical formation at this point on fourth and short at the Giants 11. And it appeared that the Eagles were in the process of executing another successful tush push conversion. However, the ball was knocked out of the hands of Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts by Giants outside linebacker Kayvon Thibodeau with a clear recovery by New York. However, even though that the whistle had not been blown, game officials would go on to rule and say that the play had been blown dead, which clearly it hadn't. And then they awarded the Eagles the first down. And of course, the Giants were furious about this. You can't blame them. You cannot blame Giants head coach Brian Daboll. He had every right for that. The Eagles went on and scored another touchdown, and then, much to Brian Daboll's dismay, they also went on to say that hey, the play could not be challenged. So before you blinked, the Eagles were up 14-7, and of course they never looked back en route to the 38-20 win. Now, would the Eagles have still won this game if the game officials had gotten the call right? More than likely. I mean, but this is still going to add fuel to the fire of the critics who want to go out there and cite that this is not a non-football play and it's impossible to defend. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Okay, I have not been a fan in the past of some teams around the NFL pushing to ban the tush push. And I've been of the category of saying, hey, you know what? You need to find ways to stop it. However, it's one of those right now. There's growing more, more folks out there saying, hey, we need to put an end to this. And at the same time, we've also seen some teams around the league begin to get very creative as far as trying ways to stop it. Last Sunday, we saw the Minnesota Vikings have a defensive lineman laid down to almost try to, form a barrier or create a barrier rather, on this play. And, we've seen players jump over the pile. And of course, in the case of Kayvon Thibodeau, very smart football play. He basically knocked the ball, not basically, he did knock the ball out of the hands of Jalen Hurts. We've seen the NFL this year begin to crack down on the alleged false starts by the Eagles on this play. It's one of those where you ask yourself, will yesterday's non-call by the officials lead to more regulation on a tush push? Possibly. Okay, but for me, the biggest thing is the game officials have to get their calls right because I think tush push aside, and of course, there's going to be controversy after the non call yesterday. I totally get it. I feel like yesterday was more about the referees than it was the Philadelphia Eagles because aside from that controversial call, the referees that were assigned to that Eagles Giants game screwed up a lot of calls. Okay, calling offensive pass interference on Darius Slayton when it clearly wasn't. Calling defensive pass interference on the Giants when it wasn't. And then of course, that play right there. So at the end of the day, I feel like if the officials get their ducks in a row, so to speak, we're not having this issue. There needs to be more consistency. We've had some points this season where what the league office has intervened and said, hey, you know what, you need to reverse that call. You go back a couple of weeks ago on Sunday night when the Chiefs played the Lions, and they took a touchdown off the board in favor of the Lions. I would like to have more consistency on that because if you're going to chime in to take off, or change that call, you can chime in to change this call as well, because it was a critical point, because the Giants probably, not probably, they would have had some momentum for themselves after making that stop. And then, of course, not only momentum for them, something else for the Eagles to think about, because the tush push, for the most part, when the Eagles run it, they're highly successful in their conversions. So just to make them think about something else. But for me, I look at it like this: had that have been at the goal line, of course, we're not having this conversation, because all Jalen Hurts would have had to do was to break the plane. But of course, this is in the field of play, and it's fair game. And the bottom line is, all 11 of those defenders out there, they're going to do whatever it takes possible to go out there and stop you from getting that first down, stop you from getting that score. Just plain out try to stop you. But you look at it right now, and I feel like the eyes of the NFL were already on the tush push, and now there's going to be laser focus. Why? Because this non-fumble call, and it was a fumble, okay, um, it's had a lot of people talking about it today, and people are going to continue to talk about this matter. And the bottom line is, like I said, for me, the call is more about the referees than it was the Philadelphia Eagles. But of course, the critics of the play are going to say, hey, see, I told you. So I'm looking at it like this: will the tush push be outlawed? Uh, I think sooner rather than later it's going to happen. I mean, of course, it was tabled last year after they came up short of getting the necessary votes, but they are right on the cusp of doing it. And I think sooner rather than later, we're not going to see this play allowed in the NFL, because the bottom line is, it's going to be outlawed. There are people out there who say that it is difficult to officiate. There are people out there who also talk about the player safety aspect of it. It all depends on what avenue you take on this matter. But the bottom line is, you've got a lot of people out there who are not fans of it, and then of course the controversial call, or non-call rather, yesterday on the fumble, is only going to add fuel to that fire. So it's one of those. The Eagles, I feel like they are going to continue to run it in the meantime until people try to stop them, or people do stop them, should I say, because teams are trying. But nonetheless, like I said, defenses are getting more creative in order to go out there and find ways to try to stop this play. And I think they're going to keep getting creative until something happens. But nonetheless, I think I just have a gut feeling on this. All right, that maybe at some point in a big game for the Eagles, it doesn't work, and then of course we're looking at it a little bit different. But nonetheless, that was a fumble. Anyway, you slice it yesterday, with a clear recovery by Kayvon Thibodeau, and the ref screwed that up. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Ref screwed up a lot of calls yesterday in that Eagles Giants game. But again, the critics of this play are going to sit back and say, I told you so. I really want to see how this play is looked at and officiated for the rest of the season. And of course, like I said before, sooner rather than later, the tush push, fairly or unfairly, is going to be a thing of the past in the NFL. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw in this podcast, you know what to do. Just hit that like button, as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check me out anytime at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you give me that follow, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. And the same goes for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you're on Facebook, be sure to check out the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports debating groups going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.